This is a movement practice to help you move as many parts of your body as possible, but in a short period of time. So perfect for when life is really busy or even a little stressful. And we really just need some time to get things moving, maybe even to slow things down a little bit and to offer ourselves some care and compassion. There is an optional rest at the end of this practice. You can skip it, but I always encourage you to rest as much as possible. And then we're very prop minimal for this. You just need a little bit of space around you, maybe some wall space, maybe a chair. Those are optional, and possibly something to support your head and maybe even to sit on. So a block or a pillow or a cushion. And then when you're ready, we're going to go ahead and dive straight in. We're going to lie back in a constructive rest pose. So knees bent and the soles of your feet on the floor. We'll just take a couple of seconds here to settle in, to invite your body to really get a little heavy, get a little soft here on the floor. Feel your feet, the back of your head, the back of your ribs, and the back of your pelvis resting here. And then just taking that little snapshot of noticing how you feel now. We'll come back to that at the end of the practice. And just another breath here before we begin to move. So an inhale, and then let that go. So we're going to start with the smallest joints of the body. So knees, elbows, wrists, ankles, fingers, and toes. And you're going to pick your feet up off the floor. Start to bring your knees in towards your chest. You're going to bring your arms up off the floor as well. And then we'll start to bend and straighten here at the elbows and at the knees. Just noticing how that feels in your joints. So knees and elbows. And we're going to start to add in some wrists and ankles. So just some circles here. And noticing, sorry, mine are a little cracky. Noticing how your ankles and your wrists are feeling. You could see how it goes to keep up bending and straightening the elbows as you move the wrists. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And then we'll start to get into those little joints, the fingers and toes. So a little bit of wiggling, maybe a little scrunching and separating fingers and toes. Good. A little bit more of whatever of those are feeling best for you in the moment. Knees, toes, whatever it is. And then give that all a little shake out. We'll go ahead and place the feet back down onto the floor. Step your feet out a little bit wider from their starting point. And we're going to move through the hips with some windshield wipers. Now, everybody's hips feel a little bit different here with these movements. So you're always moving the right amount for you. There's no right or wrong amount of movement with these. It's what feels good in your body in the moment. You can have your hands resting on the body, or you can take your arms a little bit more out by the side. I'm kind of stopped by the wall here, so I'll keep my hands resting. Initially, we're going to keep the pelvis on the floor, and we're going to start this wiper movement just through the hips. So you might notice the leg bones don't go very far, and that's absolutely fine. You're just checking in and noticing how that feels in your hips. So we drop the knees to one side and then the other. And then we'll gradually start to increase that movement if it feels okay for you. So if we start to let the knees drop a little bit more, sometimes the opposite hip is going to lift off the floor. And we'll start to move a little bit more into the pelvis, but also into the side of the waist. And also into the low back. So as little or as much movement here as feels good for you. And again, I'm being stopped by the wall on one side, so maybe don't be too close to a wall for this practice. We'll do a couple more of those, just noticing how that feels in your hips. And then we're going to take a little pause in one side and then the other. So whatever side you're on, go ahead and let your knees drop as far as they can go. You're going to intentionally lift the opposite hip. So if your knees are dropped to the right, it will be your left hip. It's going to lift a little bit more off the floor. You just start to notice how that feels at the front of your hip and your pelvis here. We'll take a couple of breaths. If it feels okay, you could intentionally lift your hip a little bit more forward, but not so much that you're feeling that in your lower back. So a little lift if that feels okay. One more breath in, and then slowly release that back as you exhale. You're going to do your other side. I'm going to repeat that side since I don't have the room. So knees to the other side, maybe that little lift of your hip. Just notice how the second side feels compared to the first side. And you're taking a couple of breaths here. Good. One more breath in. And then release that back out. And then just another check-in here before we change and come up to sitting. Maybe just noticing what, if anything, has shifted, how you're feeling through your hips, but also those little joints of the body, just with that small amount of movement we've done. And when you're ready, we're going to come up to sitting. You can roll all the way up, or you can roll to one side and then the other. And here's where you might like to use your support to sit on. So if you like that to be a little bit higher, you can actually do this part of the class sitting in a chair, if you prefer. So coming into a comfortable seat, you don't have to sit cross-legged. You can have your legs stretched out in front of you. You can have your feet on the floor, or as I mentioned, you can be sitting on a chair. So find that comfortable seat, whatever that is for you. And just do a quick check-in, maybe a little wiggles or rolls of your shoulders, and a little check-in with your neck here as well. We're going to start with some rotation for the spine, and we're going to add in a little bit of combined spine, shoulder, and neck movement from here. Again, these are all any amount of movement that feels right for you. So we'll start by bringing the hands together in front of your heart, and these are going to be slightly active twists, meaning we're not using the arms to pull us into these. So keeping the pelvis pretty steady where it is, we're going to start to turn as far as you can go towards the right. We're just going to let the head and neck follow with that movement as you turn towards the left. So we'll do a couple more of those. Notice where your natural stopping point is as you rotate here. And then as we start to add more twists, see if maybe there's a little bit more rotation available. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Again, it's all about what feels best in your body in this moment. Great job. And then the next time you twist to the right, we're going to take a pause. We're going to release the hands, taking your left hand to your right knee, your right arm behind, and now we'll add a little bit more support from the arms as we rotate. Maybe not too much. You don't want to pull with the arms, but you could use the hands to help bring a little more lift and length to your spine here maybe. As you turn, and now we're going to let the head rotate as far back as it's willing to go over that right shoulder. And then you're going to turn your head towards your left shoulder. So just getting a little counter rotation here with the neck. And as you start to rotate your neck, notice how you're feeling around the muscles of your neck and your jaw. If you're feeling some tension there, you could even add in some lower palate wiggles, some jaw wiggles there. See how that feels. Hard to do that and talk at the same time. So I'll let you explore that, maybe even a yawn or two, just to really help encourage some mobility and some movement here. Now, the next time that you are looking forward, so looking over your front shoulder, we're going to pick that arm up. I'm just going to scoot me a little more forward here just to show. You're going to pick that back hand up off the floor. You're going to take a big sweeping circle with your fingertips up towards the ceiling. As you start to come back to center with your spine, you're going to reach that back arm around, touch your opposite knee, and then start to tuck your tailbone under and around the spine, almost like a cat pose, like a seated cat pose, and bring your chin towards your chest. Just take a couple of moments to notice how that feels in your upper back. Maybe notice a little bit of space in between your shoulder blades. Take a breath in here. And then as you exhale, start to unwind your spine, come all the way back up to sitting. You want to give your shoulders a little roll after that. And then we'll do the same thing to the opposite side. So we'll bring the palms of the hands back together in front. We're actually going to go right first to check this more active twist. See if maybe there's a little more rotation now that we spent some time there on that side. And then rotate opposite side this time. You're going to pause here, rotating to the left. You're going to bring your right hand down, your left arm behind. And again, we're not pulling or yanking the body with the arms, maybe just using a little bit of resistance and a little support here for some length for the spine as you turn your head to look behind you. And then we'll begin those same rotations of the neck, chin looking forward, chin turning back. And then same jaw wiggles or stretches or yawns if you're noticing some tension in the jaw. Do a couple more of those. And then notice as well, because we've already started to move the neck, how is it moving second time around? How is that feeling in your neck? And then the next time that you're looking forward, and scoot me back forward again, you're going to do that big reach. So it's a big sweep of that back arm up and around. We kind of unwind the spine out of that twist. You're going to take hold of your opposite knee, and we'll find that same tuck under. So a little bit like cat pose here, tucking your chin towards your chest, rounding your spine towards the wall behind you, and just breathing into that space in between your shoulder blades. Notice how this arm on top feels compared to the other side. One more breath in here. And then start to unwind slowly, bringing your spine back to neutral. Release your arms and give them a little shake out there. Again, just a second to kind of notice how you're feeling in your upper body now that we've started to move spine, shoulders, neck, and head. Take a breath in and then just let that go. Okay. So we're going to come up to standing, and we're going to do sort of a whole body movement here. It's going to be hips and arms and a little bit of a side stretch before we come into that rest at the end of the practice. With this practice, with this standing one, first of all, we're going to come up to standing. If it feels okay in your body and with your balance and how things are going for you today, maybe you're going to try to come up to standing without using your hands. As I'm sitting this way, I'm going to give it a try from there, okay? Otherwise, you're going to make your way up however is best for you. And you can go ahead and set any props off to the side as you find your way up. Your ankles and your wrists and your knees and your elbows and your hips and your shoulders. One more little shake out, and just start to find a comfortable width between your feet. What feels supportive in your body as you come up to standing? Can you start to get a little sense of your feet spreading out? So after those little toe movements, can you get a little sense of your toes spreading out onto the floor? And just a little sense of your shoulders starting to drop a bit more away from your ears. Take a breath in here and out, letting that go. Good. So I think I was starting to say before, we're going to put together a movement for the shoulders and a movement for the hips into one nice big whole body kind of effective mobility practice. Again, something that's nice that could even be done on its own if you just needed to move yourself a little bit and you've got 1 minute. Okay, so we'll break it down and then we'll put it together. The first part is going to be the arms and the shoulders, and it's pretty straightforward, really. We're going to start by reaching the arms down and out. We're going to reach them out as wide as we can. Start to bend your elbows. Palms of the hands will come to rest towards the back of your head. They don't need to touch, whatever feels reasonable here for you. And then we're going to reverse that. We're going to reach the arms back out, all the way out to the sides. And then they'll start to internally rotate at the shoulders as we bring our hands back behind the body. Again, it doesn't matter where they pause here, just wherever feels right for you. And we'll do that a couple more times. You're going to take a big reach up, palms of the hands back. We're maybe trying not to back bend too much as we do that. So staying strong and supported in the feet. And then reaching the arms back and behind. Try that a couple more times. I'm going to invite you to really think of taking up space here, like you're trying to create the biggest wingspan you can, really touching the opposite ends of the room that you're in with your fingertips. Do that one more time just to set that pattern. Arms reach and then back, and then we'll let that go. We'll give that a little break. So the second part of this movement is going to be kind of like a squat pattern. Everybody's going to be a little bit different with this, and we're not going to get really technical with the squat pattern. We just want to get the hips, the knees, the ankles moving a little bit here. This is where maybe having a chair could be supportive if you prefer. So you could do something like a sit stand from a chair if that feels more appropriate for you. And again, we're not trying to go too low. We don't want to maybe go so low that our heels are coming up off the floor. You're going to find where your feet can stay firmly rooted into the floor, and you will find your appropriate amount of a squat. And you'll take this time, I should be doing this while I'm talking, just to start to play around and maybe start to see what feels right or reasonable for your hips and your body with this. Again, you can, if you do this video more than once, you can play around with it. You can do different stances, feet closer, feet narrower, toes forward, toes turned out. And it can sometimes just depend on the day. Some movements are just going to feel better on some days rather than others. About this amount is feeling right for me. I'm right now liking a little wider stance with my toes turned out a little bit. But again, really up to you. And you could use a chair if you prefer. So start to find your right amount of a squat. And then we're going to add that arm movement in. Our hands are actually going to start behind the head. We're going to bring them behind the body as we lower, and then push through the feet to bring ourselves back up and hands back behind the head as we stand. Not trying to fly through this or do it super fast. In fact, it can add a little bit of a challenge to slow it down. We can really focus on things like pushing the floor away with our feet. So we're getting even a little strengthening opportunity into the practice as we move. So let's give it a go. We're going to do a few of these. Now bring the palms of your hands behind your head. Let your elbows come out any amount that feels reasonable and again, maybe isn't bringing you into a back bend. we're going to lower on an inhalation and come back up from the squat on the exhalation. But if you lose that and you're breathing in whatever way, don't worry about that too much. So from here, we're going to try it. We'll take that breath in, and then as we breathe in, we're going to lower knees, hips, arms, hands are going to come behind. And then on an exhale, you're going to push the floor away. We're going to try to come back up a little slowly. So again, we're not rushing through that. Hands come back behind the head. So we're going to inhale, lower, still taking up all of that wingspan with your arms. Exhale, push up and reach. Good. And then just start to find a pace here that kind of feels right for you. I'm going kind of slow because I need to talk at the same time. But if you wanted to speed it up a little bit, you could. But really, we want to stay a bit mindful with this practice. So even though it's short, we don't need to feel rushed because we have enough of that going on in our lives at the moment. Right? So a couple more of those. Maybe you're going a little bit lower now. Maybe you're not. Maybe you're actually happier to keep that up a little bit higher. So entirely up to you. I do one more here. Lower into your squat. Maybe there's a little pause at the bottom of it if that feels okay. Maybe there's not. And then last breath out all the way back up. And then go ahead, let your arms drop, maybe a little wiggle out for everything, especially the hips. Check in and see how they're feeling. And then just coming back briefly to that comfortable stance. What feels like it's supporting you right now? Can you find that little spread of your toes onto the floor? And then before we make our way back down to the floor, we're just going to bring one hand to rest around the belly center and one hand to rest around your heart center. Maybe you notice your heart beating. Maybe you notice your hips or your shoulders after that whole body practice. Take a breath in and out. Just noticing and feeling and being present with that right now. And then go ahead and let your hands float back down by your sides. We're going to sit briefly, and then I'll set you up for either that rest or you can finish your practice whenever you are ready. So back briefly to your comfortable seat, whatever that is for you. And the very last part of ourselves we're going to think about with this roughly whole body movement practice, it's just a little side stretch. So you're going to take your right arm out to the side. You're going to reach your left fingertips away from you towards the left. And then we'll start to bring that arm up and overhead. Just want to try to keep that left sit bone rooted down into the floor as you reach to the right. Now, you could explore bending your right elbow, or you could keep it straight. Again, this is just any amount of a stretch that feels reasonable. Sometimes a little reach and then easing out of it can feel good. But let this be whatever you need it to be in this moment. One more breath here, and inhale. And then as you exhale, make your way back to center. Check in with the side that you've stretched compared to the non-stretched side. And then swap it over. Opposite hand reaches out, right fingertips reach, and then we'll take that arm up and overhead. And this sometimes is where we can really start to notice a difference from one side to the other in our bodies. So I know for me, my right side always feels a little more resistant, a little shorter. So sometimes we might find a spot that just feels really good. We want to pause there. Breathe into that. Good. And we'll do one more breath, inhaling. And then exhale it back to center. One last little check-in, neck, shoulders, Maybe even give your jaw a little bit of a wiggle. And then let everything come to stillness here in a seat. Taking one breath in and a nice slow breath out. You could sigh or breathe out through your nose. Well done. If that is all the time you have had for yourself today, maybe you have 2 seconds, 3 seconds to do another breath or two. Or if you have a few more minutes or a lot more minutes, I'm going to invite you to give yourself time to rest. This rest doesn't need to take a long period of time. 5 minutes of just slowing down can really make a huge difference, especially when life is really stressful, especially when maybe we are going through some hormonal changes and menopause and things like that. So this is legs up the wall. If you have your chair or near a bed or sofa, you might prefer your legs over a chair or bed or sofa. I'm just going to show the wall version for now, and I will leave you during this practice encouraging you to stay for as long as you can. And once more, you might want your cushion for some support for your head and neck. If you're doing this from the floor, maybe scooting your bum into the wall as close as you can. And then we're going to do a little roll, a little side turn here to get onto the back. You can have your legs a little straighter. You can have your feet on the wall, your knees bent up a little bit. It's going to be really up to you to decide what feels comfortable and right for you in this moment. Could even add in a little bit of hip movement. Could take your legs out wider, or you could cross at your ankles and support your legs in this way. Arms can rest by your side, on your body, one hand on your heart, one hand on your belly, whatever feels the most supportive for you in this moment. As you start to make the pose right for you, start to invite your arms, your shoulders, back of your head, your belly, and your jaw and your spine to soften. To really feel supported by the floor here. Bringing your attention to your breath. Breathe in whatever way supports you. And I invite you to stay resting here for as long as you have available to you right now. Whether that's 1 minute, 5 minutes, even a very luxurious 10 or 15 minutes. You are worthy of rest whenever you need it. Thank you so much for practicing with me, and I hope to see you again soon.